When governments believe trouble may be coming, they move people first. That is what is happening around Iran. Citizens from multiple countries, including India, are being told to leave. Diplomatic missions are cutting back. Military forces are adjusting their posture. To discuss more on the developments of the US-Iran standoff, joining me now is Dr. Glenn Deason, Professor of International Relations at the University of Southeastern Norway. Welcome, Professor. I'm Kripa. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
Professor, evacuations are one of the clearest signals that governments send without firing a shot. There is no declared conflict, no confirmed strike, and yet thousands are being told to leave. So historically, how rare is it to see coordinated evacuations without an active war, and what specific indicators push governments from caution to evacuation?
No, I think you're very correct. If you want to assess any threat, you look at two components. You look at capabilities and intentions. And obviously, the United States has been mounting an incredible amount of military capabilities. And indeed, the fact that they've mounted this many capabilities makes it very difficult to withdraw them because one would lose face. So there's no off-ramp, essentially, for the U.S. to back away. And again, you're clear with the intentions as well. The U.S. keeps making clear intentions that it wants to strike Iran. And a real red flag, of course, is when they call for the evacuation of their diplomatic staff and their own citizens. So I think it looks very credible that a war will come very soon as well.
Yes, Professor. As you mentioned, the U.S., in his State of the Union address, U.S. President Donald Trump had a firm language, few off-ramps, and a clear emphasis on consequences. He blasted Iran for trying to build missiles that can reach the U.S. Tehran, however, has rejected previous claims on missiles and nuclear program as, quote, big lies. But how is Trump's speech likely being read in Tehran and by the Supreme Leader of Iran, Khamenei?
Well, they're likely being read as a declaration of war, but I think the Iranians have seen this coming anyways, because the whole premise for Trump, the Trump administration, has been to mount as much pressure as possible, and by building up all this force, the Iranians would back down. But again, there's no peace deal which can be possibly acceptable for Iran, because what the Americans are asking for is not transparency around the nuclear program to make sure it's civilian, because if they wanted this, they already had the JCPOA. So this is not what they want. The Americans do not want any civilian program either, but this is not acceptable to Iran. This is their right as a signatory of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. It's also important for their economy. But the Americans, as you suggested, also want other things. They want essentially Iran to capitulate. That means they should reduce their ballistic missiles stockpile, their drones, and they should also abandon their regional alliances, be it with Hamas, Hezbollah, or Yemen. And this is all very problematic, because if Iran does all of these things, it has no conventional deterrence, and its entire security will then be based on, the benign intentions of the US and Israel not to strike again. Because the only reason the US and Israel hasn't attacked yet is because Iran has a powerful deterrent. And now the US is threatening to attack Iran unless it gives up that deterrent. So it's essentially a proposition which the Iranians cannot accept. And I think this is why the scope of negotiations is very limited for the Iranians. And they essentially took all of this off the table. They're saying, we're not going to discuss any of these things. We're not going to give up our ballistic missiles. So, there's very little to talk about. And the US set the demand so high without an off-ramp that I think the only way for the US to walk away from this is, at minimum, give a bloody nose strike to the Iranians, that drop some bombs a few days, then say that, you obliterated whatever you want to obliterate, and walk away. But Iranians have said as well, we're not going to accept any more attacks on Iran. This is considered to be an existential threat, and for that reason, Iran will hit back very heavy if America attacks. So this is going to be a war, most likely. I think it's almost unavoidable now, and it's going to be a huge war as well.
Yes, Professor, as you mentioned, Iran's security. Iran's leverage actually begins with its energy and also its geography. Now, Iranian commanders have stranded themselves in and around the Strait of Hormuz, and roughly a quarter of the world's seaborne oil passes each day through this 21-mile wide choke point. As Iran is very vocal about closing this area, I'd like to know how credible is pressure around Hormuz right now, and what would the global repercussions be if it closes?
Well, as you said, much of the world economy depends on this strait being open. And the Iranians have said they will close it, and I think this is very credible. Because, again, this is seen as an existential threat to the Iranians. So they will shut this one down. And they already shown that they're willing to shut it down temporarily during the fire drills they just held. And this also fits within the wider, predictable way the Iranians will respond. They will attack U.S. bases, regional allies who join in on the attack, or let their territory be used, such as some of the Gulf states. And the reason why the Iranians see this as an existential threat is, I guess, because it is. That is, the Americans obviously have regime change as an option, as a strategy or as a goal, but they don't have a replacement government. So any regime change would likely result in the fragmentation, that is the balkanization of Iran, which would lead to massive casualties and the destruction of Iran as we know it. So this is not just a struggle from the Iranian perspective for the survival of the government, but it's also the survival of the country. So they will launch everything in order to survive. You don't want to put a big power like Iran in a corner, make it fear for its existence, because then it will do hit back in a huge way. And that's why I think shutting down the Strait of Hormuz is a very likely option, which they've said they will do. And I think we should take their word for it.
Dr. Deason, I'd also like to get your insights on India. India's evacuation advisory stands apart as a country that is balancing energy dependence and regional stability as well as strategic autonomy. So what does India's decision to move citizens out now tell us about how New Delhi is reading the risk and how exposed it believes the region could become?
Well, I think India's doing what's in India's interest, which is to protect its people. If you think a major war is coming, then one wants to pull out. I think the interest of India in this wider context is essentially to adjust to this new multipolar distribution of power. That is, it should maintain good relations with all centers of power. That is, it should have good relations with the U.S. as well as Iran, and try not to be forced to pick one over the other. And this is something, of course, India has been under a lot of pressure from the United States to reduce economic connectivity with Iran, be it energy or some of these transportation corridors. I'm thinking then primarily about the international north-south transportation corridor. So I think, in India, not just in relation with Iran, but also other great powers, be it Russia or China, has been under pressure of the United States to essentially do what the Europeans have been asked to do, which is to cut themselves off from all other centers of power, make themselves less prosperous by only having strong economic ties with the United States, and make themselves politically obedient. So I think that this is what the Indians are resisting, because that would make India, into a basket case, a bit like the direction Europe is taking. So no, I think this is primarily now, of course, about the security of Indians, which is why they're pulling it out. But I'm assuming they have good intelligence and they see what we're seeing, that this war most likely is coming, and it's coming very soon.
We'll leave it there for now, Professor. Thank you for helping us cut through the signals and assess what matters. We appreciate your time and your insight. Thank you.
Thank you, Kripa. My pleasure.
Thank you.